The psychological activities behind a man's cheating when his wife asks for details. Hi everyone, I'm Cherry. I recently received a question from a cheater. Why does my wife always want to know the details after I cheated? Believe me, she is not looking for trouble for herself. She is just having a self-dialogue. She seems to be asking you the details of your betrayal, but in fact she is asking herself whether she should forgive you. In fact, the essence of this is nothing more than two psychological tendencies. One, she is still trying to forgive you too. She wants to let herself see the false fantasy she has for you and give up on you completely. This shows that she still cares. She cares about this marriage, and she also cares about you, the husband who betrayed her. Wife always wants to know the details. If you are a cheater, when your wife repeatedly asks you about the details of the cheating, you will still feel disgusted and think that she is holding you and is unreasonable. Then I sympathize with your wife because as a betrayer, you still cannot understand her feelings. Those who don't care about you, don't care about the fate of your marriage, and don't want to share the hardships with you will never ask you about the details of your cheating because she has no interest in why you betrayed her. She thinks you are dirty and morally corrupt. For the sake of her own image, she doesn't want to get entangled in the quagmire of betrayal with you. She also thinks you have brought big trouble to the marriage, so she wants to draw a clear line with you psychologically. She also thinks it is too shameful to sit down and talk about betrayal, so she doesn't want to pay a little emotional value for your betrayal and bear any responsibility. Maybe she is ready for divorce and has sentenced this marriage to death. She won't even raise her eyelids if you beg for mercy. Or maybe she decides to stay in the marriage, but also decides to be a dead person in the marriage from now on, not paying attention to you and to the third party. She just wants to be selfish in the marriage. She knows how to get revenge on you, so she ignores you, untreats you as Aaron doesn't treat you as a person. Only those wives who want to leave but are reluctant to leave and want to stay in the marriage but are unwilling to do so will seem to torture themselves again and again, asking you how you met the third party, how many times you have met, how much money you have transferred, whether you have traveled alone, and how many times you have had physical relations. And if your wife keeps asking you about the details of your affair, she is not asking you, she is asking herself. This is a conversation with herself, whether she should give you another chance, whether you are trustworthy. You have to understand her helplessness, see the worries behind her repeated questions, give her respect and understanding, and remember to protect your marriage from collapsing again. One dramatic reaction, betrayal itself is a mystery whose truth cannot be determined. It contains too many whys. Why did he betray me? Why is she better than me in his eyes? Why does he think there is something wrong with our marriage? These whys are like a fog that shrouds the cheated person, making her dizzy, and all she sees are lies and concealment. When she finds out that she has been living in a man's fictional reality for a long time, she will suddenly not be able to tell what is true in reality, and her heart will experience a huge shock. When people collapse, they want to grab more handles, and the details of the truth are a handle. Maybe this can help her recover from the shock of losing her sense of reality. Otherwise, she will want to post all this on the internet, tell her family, and have a physical conflict. Driven by anger, she will do something regretful. So she will keep asking about the details of the affair to restore her inner trauma and pain to an acceptable level in reality. When encountering a marriage crisis, couples avoid communication. She wants to know, did you and her meet on a business trip? How many times have you met? How is she better than me, who took the initiative first? She is trying to complete this trauma puzzle and have a relatively true narrative. Once she knows the whole picture of the matter, she will know your motives and the reasons for the failure of the marriage. Then it can help her mourn her loss of trust in you like a ritual, and she can also be free from the pain. 2. Let the pain have boundaries. After learning about the betrayal, she will be full of imagination about the details of her absence. When she sees your explicit chats, she will imagine that maybe you are even more intimate and explicit offline. When she sees the money transferred to the third party, she will imagine that you must have invested more emotions in the third party in your heart. When she sees that you first had sex half a year ago, she may imagine that you really started earlier. These boundless imaginations will continue to torture her mind. When her brain is blank and her emotions are eager to have an outlet, she often imagines a picture that is more terrible than the actual situation. And if she can know the details, it will undoubtedly be a comfort to her. Although she may experience another kind of pain after knowing the details, this is definitely less painful than the boundless imagination. You can understand that she is gaining a certain sense of control through being abused. Even if she knows the very ugly truth that you bought a house for the third party, it is much better than being kept in the dark and at the mercy of others. In this way, she will have a clear understanding of what kind of injury she has suffered and how much injury she has suffered. Otherwise, you have already deceived her, and will she still be in a passive position and let you bully her? By asking for more details, her pain has a boundary which holds all her doubts from expanding outward, and her heart will be grounded. 3. Implicitly test your husband's remorse. Knowing more details of the affair is also testing whether you will be honest with her, which can show whether you are truly repentant. If you avoid her questions and are unwilling to answer she wants to know, she thinks that you are shirking responsibility and you are unwilling to take the responsibility you should take for your affair. Maybe you will be annoyed by the questions and get angry with her, which will be interpreted by her as you are determined to leave and have no sincerity at all. She will judge that continuing to live with someone like you will only lead to more deception and concealment. And you will also cause more harm to her, because you are a person who does not realize that you have done irreparable trauma to others. If you are a person who can be honest with her, perhaps in the eyes of a helpless person, the details of your relationship with a third party are no longer the point. The point is that you are willing to tell her the truth. You can see her insecure heart, and your sincerity may make her willing to rebuild trust with you again. 4. Measure the depth of betrayal and the value of marriage. For a person who still has hope for marriage, she is also very afraid that her fantasy about marriage is just a false one. What if the threat is not clear and you rekindle your old love with a third party? She needs to ask clearly, is it just a one-night stand with the third party, or are you really in love? Are you good friends or just strangers? Is there any possibility of getting back together? How long have you deceived her, and what means did you use? These questions seem unnecessary to delve into, but asking them in depth can actually tax at the bottom of the marriage. To what extent has the trust between you two been broken? Is this extramarital affair serious? Is the threat in the future big? At the same time, her questioning of details is also asking herself the answer to how deep your betrayal of her is, whether you are worthy of forgiveness, and whether this marriage is still worth repairing. For example, when she knows that you have brought a third party home, she will doubt whether you are tarnishing the sanctity of marriage, and you seem to have no bottom line. Or when she knows that you bought a more expensive gift for the third party, she will also doubt whether the other party is really more important in your heart. These are not that you will not have these doubts if you hide them from her. The wife is very sensitive. She can smell that something is wrong with your marriage in this crisis of betrayal, and you can't hide it. If you can see the helplessness behind her asking these questions, the shattered self-esteem, the pain of being despised and hurt, then you will not be uncertain about whether to tell her the details. You will see that her questions are also to repair your marriage and make a relatively fair decision for the two of you. If you don't know the worst details, you can't make a firm decision. So we can see that constantly asking for details is not that she really wants to torture herself, but it is precisely her way to get out of the trauma of betrayal. This is an instinctive and complex psychological reaction. 2. How to deal with a wife who wants to know the details after cheating. 1. If you are the one who cheated, you need to be patient to appease your wife's repeated and unrequited turbulent emotions. You also need to be empathetic and sympathize with your wife's sin or helplessness at this time. You also need to answer the details gradually, unsincerely, within the scope that your wife can bear, and avoid giving her some answers that she cannot accept in order to hurt her. The key point of this process is to let your wife see your regret. You really regret that you have cheated. Maybe this process is accompanied by a lot of shame, but this is indeed what you should do if you really want to stay in this marriage. If you think that your wife will deepen the punishment for you if she knows more details, so you control her from knowing the truth, then maybe your wife will become more crazy, which will trigger her more questions. You must know that the desire to control will only make the other party have more control, and defense will only usher in the same defense from the other party. You must understand that she is not asking for more details to punish you. She just wants to end her pain and does not want to be endlessly played around by you. What you need to do is stop deceiving, remove your defense, and communicate sincerely and warmly. Even if she wants to punish you, you should understand that her punishment is also for her own healing and to vent her inner pain, which cannot be separated from the reconstruction of security and trust. If you are the one who is cheated on, you should also understand that asking for details will give you a sense of control and security and take away the right to know that you have lost. But if the degree exceeds a certain range, it may cause you unnecessary secondary harm, and then you will become like a robot without emotions, just knowing the details for the sake of knowing the detail. At that time, you will fall into a more painful cycle. Knowing a detail that exceeds your psychological expectations, your heart will immediately lose control. For the sake of inner peace, you will also want to know more details and then continue to lose control, which is a very vicious cycle. You should also know that the cheater may not know his own motive for cheating, and the extent to which they have cheated cannot fully represent his true intentions. You still need to return to the relationship between the two of you to touch on the relationship issues between the two of you. After this betrayal, how did he see you in his heart? How you see him in your heart? And what do you two need to do to make each other feel really comforted? As for all the details of the betrayal, you don't have to know them all. Knowing some of them is certainly helpful for making decisions. However, whether to divorce or stay in the marriage, whether to choose to forgive or never give a chance, it is not based on the details before and during the cheating, but to see whether he is sincere after the cheating, whether he really sees your pain, and whether he admits your pain. More importantly, do you still have hope for this marriage? This is a fluid process, not a rigid decision that will never change. So if your wife always wants to know the details of your cheating, to put it bluntly, you should be happy, which means that she is still willing to talk to you instead of closing the door and avoiding all communication with you. She is not self-abuse, nor is she looking for trouble, nor is she simply curious. This is a person who is deeply in pain trying to direction and rebuild her inner order in the process of rebuilding the ruins, no matter what her final decision is. She must know clearly what happened to her so that she can decide whether to separate or try to repair it. As the betrayer, whether your attitude is sincere is extremely important. Humans have not yet invented a time machine. Things before cheating cannot be reversed, but you can use the attitude after cheating to repair your relationship with your wife. When dealing with betrayal, you need to understand that the prerequisite for wound healing is that the wound needs to be acknowledged and the pain needs to be seen.